couple of my nanny groups, and we'll get started. So, today we're going to be talking about developmentally appropriate play. Now, Einstein was the one who said that play is the hardest form of research. And I totally believe that because when children play, there's so many different things because of their creativity, because of their imaginations. There's so many different things that they discover that grown-ups don't see because sometimes our creativity has kind of just lingered away. But children discover things and they see things that we don't see. If you are a child at heart, like I am, I
Okay.
ask
Me too.
questions. I ask questions and I like to find out what's going on and what they're thinking, their imagination process. Now, what do you see when you see a pile of sand?
Pile of sand.
A pile of sand. You're at the beach. What do you see when you see a pile of sand?
It's a, through my own beliefs, I believe in endless opportunities based on what the children interpret that to be. So, in simple man's, to simplify that even more, sand can be a representation of a provocation for mark making. It could be used as a media to make marks, to explore, for exploration, to get them to draw whatever they want to draw. Often we see sand trays in classrooms and people have buckets and spades, or you might be at home in the garden and you may have a sand tray and you may just provide buckets and spades for your children. And you're encouraging them to make a tower, make something. But actually what we need to recognise with developmentally appropriate practice is that it's the children's ideas, whatever stage of development they may be at. Their own interpretation of that media, that creativity, comes from them. And we shouldn't be enforcing an adult perspective because we need to try and drive their imagination as such. I reflect back to Frederick Froebel here. The play of children is not recreation. It means earnest work. Play is the purest intellectual production of the human being. So actually, play is serious work.
Yes.
Play is a work of childhood. But what we don't do with play, often play gets misinterpreted as something that needs to have an end product. I'm going to throw that over to you, Angela.
Well, when I play with my kids, I am a nanny and a newborn care specialist, and a grandma and a mom. So when I play with the kids, I ask open-ended questions and I let them choose from, we have an outside toy box. So if I see sand and I'm like, oh wow, what can I do with this sand? And I ask them a question simply because I want them to think of ways. I had one grandson who went and grabbed a truck and he made tracks in the sand. Because the sand was white, I had my granddaughter, she says, I'm going to make some snow. So it's all depends upon interpretation as to what that child sees, as to what play is. What I do know is adults expect children to sit and sit and sit and sit. Sitting for a short period of time is fine, but expecting that child to sit there as long as you do as an adult is not okay.
No,
because children were not made to sit still. You think about it, if you have an animal at home, and does that animal actually sit still
it
all
depends.
of the time?
It
You
depends what.
have a brand new puppy.
Yeah, it depends what sort of animal you've got. My dog likes to
Well,
sit.
this is true. If you
But
have a pet cat or a pet dog, let's narrow it down. If you have a pet cat or a pet dog that's like 2 or 3 months old,
yeah,
does it does it ever sit still,
no, not at all. Not at all.
even in its sleep?
No, they're still moving around. That's
Yes,
moving around.
that's the same as a child. You at 2 or 3 years old, you expect them to sit still. Now, if they're sitting still, then something is probably wrong. Especially if they're sitting still for a long period of time. My oldest son taught me that if he's sitting still, he's either sick or he is about to fall asleep. Those are the only 2 times that he was still. So when you think of children, and they will sit still, but when they're sitting, they usually have something in their hands. They're usually busy doing something. When you force them to sit still, and that's why I like unconventional teachable moments, because I like children to learn not necessarily at a desk or in a classroom, but learn from their environment. We go out walking, we go for a listening walk. What do you hear? Do you
What do you
see?
say?
What do you see? What do you feel? All of this is teaching the child about their senses, about their surroundings, looking at what's going on around them. If you go to the zoo, what animals do you recognize? What do you see? What does it smell like? What does it, feel like?
What's that
Most zoos
today?
have petting. It's a sensory issue.
Yeah,
I used to take my kids to the grocery store with me. I had a home daycare, and I would take them to the grocery store with me. And um, the people at the grocery store who worked at the grocery store used to call me the baby lady because I was always in there with them. And we would learn. I would tell the kids, I need 5 bananas. And everybody would go and grab a banana. Now, if it's 6 kids and I only need 5 bananas, and I intentionally ask for less bananas than I had children so that we can count them and we can
individual.
put them in the basket so that we can tell what color it is, and we can, if it's 6 kids, all 6 kids have a banana. Okay, so what are we going to do with this? We only need 5, so how many do we have left over? So 5 + 1 = 6. So these are unconventional teachable moments that kids learn from, and it's fun for them, and it's actually sight reading too. I
Absolutely.
see a banana. I know what that banana is. When fruits are out of season and we go and we to the canned goods, and I ask them for peaches. I need the peaches in the green can. So they're learning colors. They're learning to see, oh, I see a peach. This is what this word says. It says peaches. So they are learning through playing, through exploring, through their environment. And they're seeing different things in fruits, and, well, what is this, and what is this, and what is this, and what is this? Because some children are not exposed to as much as adults are. Because a lot of times parents, if you're a nanny, you know the parents go to the store before they get home. So
Absolutely.
if you don't bring it home, they're not exposed to it. But if you take them to the store, they get exposed to all these fruits and vegetables. And I purposely buy fruit and vegetables that the kids like, I want to buy this. Okay, well, let's buy this. And then I have to go and find a recipe to fix it and to make it. But I open it up and I let them taste it. And as long as it's not raw meat or something, but the fruits and
Yeah,
the vegetables, I let them taste it, because if they're making something out of it, they're more likely to eat it. So that's a lesson in nutrition.
as
So
well.
you're playing, them playing and having fun is learning. Them playing with the Lego is
I
learning to
always
jump.
I always say, Angela, it's recognizing the simple moments and
Hmm.
not overcomplicating it.
Exactly.
I've seen too often with, the homeschooling for COVID-19 and people putting a label on, we're homeschooling our children. We have worksheets. Now, a worksheet can be done in so many different ways. A worksheet has one outcome. It's done. The process of learning is a process to be recognized with. Something really hit me home there. You were making a really good point about um, recognizing those key learning moments in the most unexpected times. I've I've got a few of my colleagues here on the video there, but tuning in today. But we take our children to the market, and I'm similar sort of thing. I'm running a running commentary all the time whilst we're at the market, getting the children to pay for the groceries, and how many oranges, how many bananas have we got? Oh, how many new pieces of wood sculptures has Ted made this week? You know, and getting them involved in the community.
Yes.
At this time with COVID-19 and things, that we're very limited in what we can do, but we still need to provide children with the choice around the home to develop their own curriculum during this time. I might sound like I'm completely mad, and you may be going, what is this guy saying? Um, but I'm going to take it back to Malaguzzi. And Malaguzzi said, the range of possibilities we offer children, the more intense will be their motivations and richer their experiences. So we need to liaise with our children. We need to be talking to our children about what they're interested in, planning around them as individuals, and really personalizing the learning that is taking place whilst they're at home.
Yes. You know your child best. And that if you don't know your child, now's a good time to get to know them, because it has forced, this COVID-19 has forced a lot of families to be at home with their kids more often than they care to be sometimes. Or I need to go get the work done. I need to go do this. I need to go do that. I need to go do that. But because we're uh, in shelter in place, they can't go do certain things. And the kids can't go to the park. So it's forcing adults to be creative. And you can handle it one or two ways. It can get on your last nerve, or you can open up your creative side and watch your children grow and blossom in front of you. Go outside. There's mud outside. Yes, I said mud. I know it's messy.
Nods.
Mud. There is mud outside. I remember as a child, I used to make mud pies.
Me too.
And I got in trouble one day because I put the mud pie, there was nothing wrong with putting my mud pie in the refrigerator. Well, before that day. But this day I found a worm. So the worm and the mud pie were in the refrigerator. And my mom was like, what is this? Because the worm was still moving. And I got in trouble that day because, yeah, that mud pie and that worm did not go well in my mom's refrigerator. And, you know, I thought it was okay until I grew up and my sons washed worms in their pockets. They learned early. We learned early. We made chores, and washing their clothes was one of their chores. They separated their jeans and their shirts, and they got to wash. They wanted to wash. And one day I found these little pink segments in my washing machine, and all this big hunk of black stuff at the bottom of my washer. Well, my 6-year-old son says, well, Mom, the worms were my friends. I said, well, what did you have in your pocket? He said, I had dirt in there. Don't you know they have to have a place to live? They can't live outside the dirt. So I had to put the dirt in my pocket so they could live. I didn't want to kill my friends. I was like, well, they're dead now. But he forgot to take the worms out of his pockets. I found them in the washing machine, and I'm just like, what? So, my mom always told me I was going to grow up and have a child just like me. I did.
And it happened, and it
It
happened,
happens.
it
But
happened.
I said all that to say this. Children don't think of bugs and worms as we do. We have the tendency, okay, there's a worm, there's a bug in the house, let me squish it, get it out of the house. Kids see it, make it their friends, talk to it, play with it, and you don't know that there's a big black spider in your son's room until your son goes and says, look, Mom, I have the big black spider in the jar. So you don't know these things are happening until they tell you. We kids see things differently. They react to them differently because their imaginations, they're open to anything, and they're inquisitive. I think as we grow older and society has conditioned us to, no, you can't do this, yes, you're supposed to do that, you can't do that. And teachers are now taught to teach the standardized testing, and they focus so much on the standardized testing that kids don't get to learn in non-traditional ways.
I absolutely agree. And just to bring a UK perspective into this, I always enjoy hearing what you have to say. Um, we have a curriculum in place called the Early Years Foundation Stage, which is a curriculum for from birth to 5. And in there, we have 7 areas of learning, and it's a very, very prescriptive curriculum. Tick box, children can do this by the age they need to be potty trained, they need to be meeting developmental norms per se.
Mm-hmm.
Within this curriculum, there is a set of standards called the Development Matters. What parents in the UK struggle with, this from an educator's point of view, is my child needs to be meeting this criteria, and
Right.
not recognizing that actually developmentally we're all different. Development happens when it happens for that individual child, but because they're broken down into categories of age and stage, then they think that child has to be hitting 30 to 50 months, when at 16 to 24 months they might not be meeting criteria set out for that age range. What was very interesting there, Angela, I kind of relate a lot to, and I was reading the work before doing this chat today. I was reading the work of Erik Erikson, and it reminded, he is amazing, and I always go back to childhood development and theory, because as a pedagogue in the classroom, nursery nurse and consultant, I always go back to development theory, because I'm thinking, how relatable is this to what we do in action? And I wanted to share this: the playing adult steps sideways into another reality. The playing child advances forward to the new stages of mastery. So that idea that child has got is so powerful. But often we need scaffolding. I'm going to link Vygotsky in here. We need that scaffolding. We need that effective interaction for you to actually scaffold this learning. But also find the time when you need to step back, when you need to interact, when you need to interfere. Because actually, are you giving the child too much? Or are you giving the child not so much? Really, it's a balancing act. I look at the work of Magda Gerber, and to observe less is to observe more. And her words, looking back, is we need to look at our children's interests. We need to develop an understanding of the image of the child to really recognise what is developmentally appropriate moving forward.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And when you were talking about children, uh, parents stepping back, and how each child is different, I have worked with 35 sets of twins,
Wow.
and it amazes me that they flip-flop. Developmentally, one is doing something one week that the other one is not doing. And then in 2 weeks' time, they flip-flop. And what what twin one was doing, now twin two is doing, and what twin two was doing, now twin one is doing. So they flip-flop in their personalities. And a lot of parents have and it's hard not to do this because they're your children, but they have a tendency to compare them. Well, she's not as advanced as she is, and she's not talking as much as the other one is talking. And I think I need to take her in to have her evaluated because she's not talking yet, because she's not doing this yet. And all the books say that this is what she's supposed to be doing. And I try to calm the parents down, and I tell them, look, your child is 15 months old. Your child is not supposed to be talking in 2 or 3 word sentences just yet. I said, now the books may say they have a vocabulary of 30 to 40 words, and that may be true. You may not hear all of them because children practice a lot of things in their cribs. That's why parents get so surprised that, when did you start walking? I didn't know you could walk. Well, they practice in their cribs. A lot of learning and a lot of background doing. When you hear your child up at night and you're not watching the monitor, they're practicing.
Yeah.
And they are doing. And so I try to encourage parents, especially the ones of twins, don't compare your children to one another. Yes, one has this strength, the other one has this strength, but both of them will get to where they need to go. Just keep encouraging, keep providing the stability that they need to continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to developmentally give them those opportunities to developmentally get to those and conquer those milestones. Because if you try to make them do it just because the other one is doing it, more than likely they're just going to refuse.
Absolutely. And, this from experience talking about inside the classroom, you've got 2 sets of siblings and similar thing, one might be so sporty, one might not be so sporty. And you've got parents going, are they okay? Are they, do they need any intervention to help them? Or, and I think quite easily as a practitioner, we get very much kind of in that mindset of, do we go with what the parents want, or do we use our professional knowledge to kind of explain?
Yes.
And we're caught in this trap all the time of, do we please the parents, or do we use our professional brain? And I remember a while ago having a conversation with some parents about reading, and they they came up to me and said, Rob, we want you to issue us with a reading list for our children for the summer holidays. They were 4 years old. And part of me was like, okay, you want a reading list? I can provide a reading list. And then I thought, no, I've got to stick to what's developmentally appropriate here. And what I said was, reading is all around. Reading is in a shopping list. Reading is in street signs. Reading is in car number plates. Reading is making lists around the house. Reading is on the back of the cereal, letter recognition.
Yes.
It's like I said, going back on a previous point about the simple, like, looking for learning isn't complex, it's basic. And looking at the basic concepts. And this parent actually said to me, actually, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Thank you for letting me know. But I made a suggestion of a few books, but I said they're not important for this stage of development. You want to get your child outside in the local community and looking at what's in their immediate surroundings that's going to make more sense for them eventually. The child was 4.5.
It's not like summer reading it's the summer reading like you're in high school or in middle school. At
Or it's
four and a
like,
half year old, at 4.5 years old, being outside, like you said, being outside, being in the environment, learning from the environment. Yes, picture books teach at least 1,000 words. And most parents, when they say, well, I've read that book 1,000,000 times, I'm so sick of that book. But your child loves that book,
it's
and
really
your child can read that book, and children learn through repetition. That's
absolutely.
why a routine to children is so important. So to some children, it is so important because at 3 and 4 years old, they can't tell time, but they can tell routine. I know that mommy's going to come home after I get up from nap, have my snack, and go outside. When I get back in to have dinner, mommy's coming home. So when you have that child in a routine, that's a sense of telling time. Parents don't see it as telling time, but that child is telling time by the routine that they are on.
Absolutely. And I think in this time as well, being at home, from a practical sense, making a visual timetable for your child of what is happening throughout the day to really recognize those key points that are happening so that the day doesn't just become one big, long thing, that is broken down into chunks for them to understand. So, you may have breakfast time,
Hmm.
and breakfast time, then you may have a story, then you might do some craft, then they may go down for a nap, and then it may be lunchtime, then they may go down for another nap after sleep, and then another activity, then bath, then bed. Do that step, make a visual timetable with them, so really they're recognizing their own day and what it looks like. And it can help you as well, organizing time of, what to implement in the day, what you've seen to occur as well. Um, so yeah, that's just a little tip.
Well, if you speaking of going back to your reading, that is a part of reading too. If you're making a timetable, you can get some tape, you can get some Velcro. I like to use Velcro and just a plain little, you can use a cardboard box, you can use a cardstock, but have your child take some old magazines and cut up pictures. A picture of the sky means we're going outside. Write outside across there and let them glue it to a piece of paper. Put some Velcro on the back. Let them choose their schedule. You have two things that must happen. You must have a nap and you must have lunch, and they're at the same time every day. Now, if you cut up some blocks, okay, we're going to go and play with the blocks or with the toys. That represents toys. Write toys across there
Yeah,
and have them. And by that time, you get about 4 or 5 blocks. It works on their fine motor skills because they cut it out. It they know what those symbols mean because letters are symbols and they have sounds. And when you put those sounds together, they make words. So him being able to symbolize the blocks as toys and read toys across there, and make sure you tell them what it is. TOYS is toys. They remember that. This is toys. This word right here is toys. So when they see it elsewhere, they'll remember it's toys. Give them a choice. Lunch and nap time stays in the same place every day.
Yeah.
But you can switch around your outside time, you can switch around your toy time, you can switch around your swimming time if they have a pool, whatever the case may be. Give them a control of their day.
Controlled choice. And I think that's the key point there, Angela, you've made about having choice. Because we're giving children limitations with this current situation, this unusual world that we're in right now, really giving them choice is an important concept for them to, because when they come out on the outside after this event and we're a few months down the line, that, it's a scary proposition to be making, but, they will feel that they don't have that opportunity to make choices for themselves.
Right.
So really promote choice in what you're providing for your children. Vary it up a bit as well. An interesting point that I was, reflecting on prior to this, and it's about really the freedom of expression with play, and a good master of, children's imaginations and promoting children's imaginations was someone who I've been referred to as Mr. Fred Rogers. I found that quite funny, but it's quite an interesting point he made. He said, when children pretend they're using their imaginations to move beyond the bounds of reality, a stick can be a magic wand, a sock can be a puppet, a small child can be a superhero.
Yes.
So they can be whatever they want to be, but talk and make time. Talk and make time. Recognizing the authenticity in the simplest moment. Recognizing the image of the child. Recognizing what makes them unique at this individual stage of development. How can I support them in the moment? In the moment, plan around in the moment, look at what they're interested in currently. And deeper levels of play evolve from them being engaged, more personal. I just swallowed my tongue there a little bit. I'm just so passionate about it that more personable learning needs to be happening, and we need to be ditching the worksheet. I call them worksheets. I know there's no children watching this, but yeah, we need to get rid of those. We need to be making it as personable for those children so that they are really learning and it's unique to what they're doing.
Those flashcards
Don't get me started on flashcards.
I hate flashcards. I used to teach back in the day. I used to teach preschool,
Yeah.
3 and 4 year olds, and I would take the flashcards that were presented to me, and I would take them and I would act out the word, and I had to have them guess what the word was. So we, as a preschool teacher in someone else's classroom, yes, I had to use the flashcards, but you didn't tell me how I had to use them. You just said I need to use them. So I made it creative. I started out, and then I would give the kids a word, and I would say, okay, here's your word. And I would whisper them whispered in their ears. I said, now you got to let them guess what word you are. So I would have them to act out the word. If the word was jump, they would start hopping up and down, and they're like, hop, no, no, skip, oh, no, no, jump, jump. And the kids would get all excited because now learning is not just, okay, what is this word? What is this word? What is this word? But it has become, that word is jump. And you show the word, and you tell them this word is jump. Okay, now everybody spell the word. And that's how we made it through those flashcards. I used to hate those. But when you become creative with them, if it's part of the curriculum that you have to go through, be creative. Don't
Absolutely.
just holding up the cards. The kids learn better. I am personally a hands-on learner. I'm a visual and hands-on learner. If you show me how to do it and let me follow along with you and do it, I learn better and quicker by following along and with instruction than I do by you just sitting at at the chalkboard writing it down and like, okay, so I need to go see this in action. So when I see things in action, I learn quicker. And each child is different. And because I've had a classroom full of kids um, that are on totally from the slow to the far advanced, I teach the same concept 4 or 5 different ways because
Absolutely.
the children are not going to grasp it that one time.
But
And I
it's all,
teach it through playing because them it's fun and they learn quicker and learn better when it's fun.
absolutely. And I think as adults we often are mistaken in that situation that we all do learn differently. You know, even when you're in the ECE centre or you're working with other nannies or you may be co-sharing in the classroom with different people that you're working with, remembering that we all have a unique way of learning. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn through doing. I'm very practical with the children. I'd rather someone show me something than trying to explain.
Hmm.
I also have a hidden learning challenge called dyspraxia, which means processing of information. So often, this may be another conversation for another day, but often it can be like the process of recognizing things in time and also seeing that with children. And going back to a previous point you made, Angela, about kind of just allowing children to be in the moment and recognizing each other and our challenges that we may have and face. I think often we are very caught up in our own world that learning needs to have one outcome. I, I for one, I know this. It's the individual way I work. It's people have coping strategies on how to deal with individual learning challenges at time, whether that be dyspraxia, dyslexia, things. But actually, just recognizing in the moment that we all have a gift. All have our own strengths and our weaknesses to play with. And I think it's the same with children.
Hmm.
Recognizing the children's strengths, play to their strengths, and support their challenges. But also take that perspective when you're working with your team or your families that you may be working with, recognizing how you can support one another through the way we all learn so differently and differentiate, because we differentiate for children. But actually, do we differentiate for each other? We probably don't do that enough. Going back to your other point, Angela, we it was interesting you saying about the flashcards that got me thinking about process art and lots of handprints I've been seeing online that represent different things, and I just want to tear my hair out when I see them because it brings me back to one of the early days of being a nursery nurse and ECE in a classroom at about 17 or 18 years old. And yes, that was only last year. Um, um, and I was encouraged to make these butterflies one day with the children. And this person wanted the butterflies on the paper, children's hands, like in a perfect way, with different colors. You know, it. they wanted the same colours for each. So I think one was green, one was purple. They wanted a whole display based around purple and green butterflies. And I just accepted it because at the time I wasn't at that point in my learning. But really, what type of learning are children? It came to me in a flashback when I saw this online the other day, and it made me laugh thinking about, recognizing the moment for what it's worth and actually what learning is happening. It's a green and purple handprint. It isn't a butterfly. I've seen people wanting to make elephants using their hands, but actually it's not an elephant. It's how original or how organic is this learning? Is this learning just happening so we can just tick a box in the moment and say, we've done something creative today? We've done something creative. Malaguzzi, my good old friend Malaguzzi, I quite backwards and forwards with him, but originality in art, how original is the art that the child is producing, and how does it reflect the image of the child? In the 100 languages, it reflects that very well. And I think if parents read that 100 languages, and I think more educators, I'm including nannies with that, because you are the educator of the child. I think we need to recognize that actually children's ideas are more capable than we think. We often have a preconception that our ideas are stronger than theirs. But what about if we listen to their theories, their ideas, their perspectives? I think as adults we would learn a lot more and see original work for what that's worth. And often to comprehend that argument, to go against that argument as well, I think if a child is painting with black, I remember as a child I used to love black and I used to paint everything black. And my mum went in to see the teacher one day and she said, I'm worried Robert's painting everything black. She went, it's normal. It's normal. It's a normal stage of development. The parents are always worried. But that teacher gave me the freedom of expression to be creative, to paint with black paint. And actually, like I was saying in a few other points I've made today, the originality of the children's ideas, let them splash red paint. If they want to paint with red, let them paint with red. If you want to set up a project, I'm writing an article currently about painting flowers. And often at Mother's Day or Easter, we talk about flowers, new life, and fit Easter bunny and whatever, and the coming of Christ. But what we need to do when we're doing activities that may be around this is really giving children choice, setting out a provocation for learning, going back on my first point, and really allowing the child their own ideas to pick up that pen, pick up that paintbrush, and let their imagination run wild.
Yes. Now, going back to your point about you coloring everything black.
Yeah.
It's stereotypical that boys are blue and girls are pink, and the yellow and the green is kind of in between.
Yeah.
So I had a little boy who came home from school one day, all of a sudden, everything was pink. I want the pink crayon. I want the pink crayon. I want the pink crayon. And his dad was like, no, boys don't paint with pink. They don't do this with pink. You need another color. Get another color. You can have some pink, but you can't have it all pink. Well, what he didn't understand is the little girl that he had friended at school, she was new to school, and her favorite color was pink. And because he liked her, he adapted her color as pink. So he liked pink because he wanted to be like her, because he didn't want her to feel alone. So he colored everything with pink too. To me, I understood that was empathy, that was compassion, that was a pact between friends. That, I mean, he's 5. It's not, there's nothing wrong with pink.
No.
And because we so often stereotype children and put them in a box, these are little boy colors, these are little girl colors.
I think the
They
toy
can color with a whole box of crayons.
I think the toy stores have a lot to say in the matter with, boys' aisles and girls' aisles, but what about if you mixed it all up? And I guess it, it's interesting, really, my perspective on this whole thing has grown over the years. And, I'm one of 2.5% male UK people in the early years, UK childcare workers. And actually, it's important to be portraying myself as a positive male role model to those children, but this is in years that But actually, does it matter? Does it matter? Does it matter that I'm a? Does it matter that I'm a male? You know, would I prefer better? Would I prefer a better workforce for the early years sector? Absolutely. Would I rather males be treated as a tokenistic gesture within this early years remit? No, no. It's about recognising skill set at the end of the day. But getting back to your point about boys and girls, I remember I remember having a conversation with a father who was very concerned that his child was playing with dolls. And
Another stereotype.
I was having this conversation and I said to him, frankly, it was one of my key children. I got along with his parent well. And I said to him, would you like your child to be a good father? And he laughed. And he said, what a valid point. He said, my child, I want him to be a good father. I said, those those skills are honed in the home corner.
Mm-hmm.
Playing with the dolls, the basic care, uh, uh, the principles there of taking care of a doll is taught in the home corner so that he's learning the skills of feeding and changing the baby, and making food, etc., etc. And it's real life skills that get honed in. And I've also had conversations with parents with daughters who have said to me, "Oh, they seem to be involved in boisterous play. What's is there anything I can do to make them a bit more girly?" And I'm like,
That was me. I
I'm just,
was a tomboy, so help me. I was a tomboy,
I'm just,
climbing trees and all that. Yes,
I
that's
just, we fortunately I had these good relationships that I was able to say, your child is developmentally normal. Well, there's no such word as normal, but your child is on track. Your child is on track. They have their own imagination. They are interested. They are curious. They provoke awe and wonder in their daily interactions with them. Their imaginations are so rich, and you know, I guess their ideas as well. Their ideas and what they're developing as well. It's so rich and varied. And the parents will go, oh, that's a very good point, Rob. And I think go over to you, Angela.
well, I'll just say this. Children are going to be children. And I am an all boy mom. They are grown now. And 2 of my boys have children of their own. When they were younger, I had a home daycare. And I taught them how to care for the little ones. When I became a nanny, they went to work with me. And I taught them, okay, so you have to burp the baby. You have to do this. You have to figure out what's wrong with the baby. They were 9, 10, 11 years old at this time. And teaching them how to take care of a baby, it kept them, made them realize this is hard. I don't want any kids anytime soon. I'm like, good, I'm glad you don't. But also, it taught them when they got married and they had children, they already had that foundation of, I know how to care for my child. I know how to go down a checklist and say, okay, they're not wet, they're not hungry, there's nothing, I can't see anything poking on them. Just let me hold them and burp them. And usually that's what it is. When they started getting antsy and started wiggling, they it was instilled within them early about caring for not just themselves, but for babies, for little kids. They were older, and can we play blocks with the 2-year-olds? Yes, you can play blocks with the 2-year-olds because they want to be like you. They see you as the big kids, and if the big kids are coming to play with them, that makes the 2-year-olds happy because they get to play with the big kids. And it made me happy because my children were showing compassion. Even though these children were 7, 8 years younger than them, they were able to go over there and talk to them and understand their language. It taught them how to realize that other people may not have the same strengths that they have, and that they can help. And they actually watched me. And when they started playing with the kids, well, why don't you put this? And I would look at them, okay, well, where do you want to put it? So I was like, no, don't tell them where to put it. Let them put it where they want to put it.
Yeah.
When the kids did artwork, parents were like, what in the world is this? I said, you don't recognize that cow? Oh, the cow. Yeah, I see the cow right. But I always told my kids, tell your parents about your picture. Or I would sit down, if we did an art project, I would sit down and they did a painting, tell me about your picture. And I would write a dialogue on their picture. So when mom and dad came, they would knew where to start. Oh, I love your cow. Tell me how you came up with this concept, because I let them do it themselves. I didn't have a drawing of a cow and say, here, this is what your cow is supposed to look like when it gets done.
Absolutely.
That I didn't do. Now, I have made videos with kids with art projects that I have put um, on my YouTube page,
Yeah.
but all you can see is their hands moving. And I asked them to put it in certain places so, they would know because I know everybody's not on the same level. So they
Yeah.
would know what it looks like. But when I am working with children, they do their own thing. They have their own creativity. I
And then,
provide the materials and you provide whatever it is. Okay, so here you go. What you gonna do with this? Here's some paint, here's some Legos, here's some paper. What are you gonna do? We do Lego painting. Can I put it here? Sure, you can put it there. And however many colors they want to put on there, they put it on there.
this reminds me of a story of a daycare that I've recently been doing some work with, and it's a friend of mine called Lucy Lewin from Little Angels in Uppingham. So please do give them a follow on after this chat. Lucy is a great owner, and she's developed an approach called the cardboard box approach. How many children love a cardboard box?
Yes.
The endless opportunities in a cardboard box. And I went to see her at her daycare centre, and she has so many cardboard boxes around. Years ago, they ditched the plastic, and they have so many cardboard boxes and natural resources for the children. And
Mm.
I invite you, parents, if you're tuning in or if you're working in centres or a nanny, during this time, get involved, get a cardboard box. We all have a cardboard box around the house somewhere. I'm staring at two right in front of me. But for a child, a cardboard box can be interpreted in so many different ways. It can be a rocket ship, it can be a train, it can be a boat. Why am I always going back to transport? That's my adult self kicking in. Whatever it is, let them have that freedom of exploration and ideas and a splash of creativity.
It can be
And
a tunnel too.
it can be. And
I've had big refrigerator boxes and stove boxes. I used to go to the appliance stores, and when they used to undo the boxes, I said, "Can you save that box for me?" They would break it down for me. I would take it home, tape it together, and give them crayon, and they would crawl in and out of the box. Can we get some windows? I would cut some windows out.
yeah,
Whatever their creativity was, that can we put some chairs in here? Sure, you can put some chairs in here. Can we put a table in here? Yes, you can put some tables in there. Every day it was something different.
absolutely. And I remember, I remember this funny story, but it's sort of related. Coming back to cardboard boxes, I remember I just turned 2, and my mum and dad had bought me this toy car that they'd spent a little bit of money on, and I just wasn't interested in it. I was more interested in the box that went alongside it. And actually, the good point, a few years later, I'm thinking to myself, we really recognise that we don't need to be providing children with so many toys to fill the time, but actually providing a simple object such as a box can create more awe and wonder. And I think, the time I spent in the box playing, developing as well, really got, it's got me to inspire my generation, the generation of children that I'm teaching, to actually be creative in what they do. I reflect back to Maslow in this, and we're talking a lot about developmentally appropriate practice today. But Maslow said almost all creativity involves purposeful play.
Yes.
We have all this development, Angela, and I've been trying to relate as much to theory and development today, but we still have area of society that we don't have enough value for what it's worth of actually doing things that are appropriate for young children in the moment. We always want them to be at the next step, jumping through the hoop that they're not ready to do. I invite you, after you've watched this, to come back and watch this conversation again between us, because I think there's a number of different ideas that you can look at and develop, and we'll be very interested in hearing what you've taken from this conversation today. Children need to play. Children need the freedom to play. Children, without play, does childhood really exist? Please, that could be quite a deep point to go on. But I think in true essence, if we're to go right back to the 1800s, and I'm going to quote Plato here, that life must be lived as play. And we don't need to be afraid to go and play. We don't, in the times like this, with our regulated exercise, go out and skip. Go out and hop. You might get a few weird looks, but everyone's looking at each other oddly during this time. Go and make a star. Go and jump in the street. Do something outrageous, but be true to who you are and recognise that children are the future. During this time, they need to be supported, and it comes with love. It comes with love, and I'm going to throw this over to Angela now, but thanks again, guys, for tuning into our wonderful chat today. It's been absolutely amazing to share perspective with you and learn and grow together. I wondered, Angela, if you've got anything else that you wish to say.
Well, the only thing I want to say is now is the time, because children have been so scheduled out, and I've worked with children who have something to do every day, soccer and basketball and karate and uh, swim lessons and this class and that class. Now all these things are closed, and you have to be creative with your child. Learn to play again.
Be in tune to the child, truly and honestly. And remember your own childhood and reflect on that,
Yes,
with joy. I
yes.
leave you with nothing without joy. Whatever you do, be joyful in your day. So once again, guys, thank you very much for tuning into this session. Available to watch back via Ask the Nanny and also Active Childhood UK. My name's Rob Fox, and I'm joined by Angela Sutherland from Ask the Nanny. It's great that we've been able to have this conversation with you and put the world to rights on developmentally appropriate play. Angela, thank you very much for your
You're
time.
welcome. You're welcome.
And
I enjoyed it.
me too. Me too. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. And thank you once again, Angela, for agreeing to do this with me.
You're welcome.
Take care.
All right.
Have a good day.
You
Cheers.
too.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.